What's going on? Q&A number 2. The last one I did was about 2 weeks ago. I think I might keep it as like a fortnightly thing. So I have a few little questions that people have shouted out. And I think I might go over this guitar. So this guitar hasn't featured on this channel at all until very recently, where I've got a new album out that I'm promoting, which is kind of quite surf rocky. That bit that I was just doing is off one of them. You know, it's very Gretsch heavy kind of stuff. I got this guitar just before Christmas, and to cut a long story short is I had it a couple of weeks and I broke the headstock on it. I'm going to drop, when I kind of did it, I was actually doing a YouTube video for someone. It was for a very specific project, but I'll show that footage now, so have a look at it. So you can see there that I didn't include the sound on it because it's just all swearing. But basically I put it down and it was on one of those really crappy stands. It's like one of these Fender stands, you know, it's kind of black and it's just not good. So I only ever use racks now. I actually threw them all out, those kind of forward facing kind of stands after this incident, and the guitar obviously falls forward. And I took a few pictures to document it. I got my friend John Moriarty of archtop.ie guitars to fix it, and he in fairness, I was on the phone to him within 5 minutes, and he had it back to me within a week, you know. So here's a couple of photos of the breaks. Probably the most dramatic one is the side profile, where you can see where the break is there. So quite thin, the back of the headstock there, which we'll talk about again in a minute, but it didn't come completely off. It was still attached. That side profile looks like it's just kind of hanging on by a millimeter, doesn't it, you know? And then the second one here, you can see from a different angle with the tuning heads. This is probably the only thing keeping it attached, you know? And on the third one there, you can see on the front that there was actually very minimal damage done. It was obviously bent forward, but it didn't really crack the paint too much. So you can see from the fix that it's an incredibly good job that John did. You can actually, if you get up close now, you can see, you know, the lines where it was broken and stuff, but you have to really, you need to be looking for it to kind of see it. So, and then the next photo there is just from slightly different angle there. Now John, when he was fixing it, you know, he said, you know, it's very, very thin. You can see from that shot, he was measuring it just to demonstrate how thin it was, and he was a bit concerned about the glue holding and stuff like that. And on the next one, you can see he's got it in the vise there. And there's a tiny little chip missing, so that's where you can see a little kind of blemish where the break happened. And on the last one here, you can see it, you know, in full glue mode there. But what an amazing job John did on it, because I've been using it and it sounds great. And you know, it's a guitar that has become kind of quite personal to me. I've never done a headstock break on a guitar before, and I've owned a lot of guitars. Like, the feeling that you have after doing one of them is not a pretty feeling. It's not something that you'd want any other guitar player to experience. So weirdly, this guitar, it just seems to want to bump itself off things. You know, I'm quite conscious now of this guitar. It feels much more fragile than the other ones, you know. I've dropped Strats and Tellys and all kinds all over gigs and never done any damage to them. But this one, every time I seem to pick it up, I seem to donk it and it gets a new scratch. It's kind of got a bit of a death wish. I should call it Charles Bronson or something, this guitar. Anyway, it's a great sounding guitar, and it's a nice. I have another one, don't I? I have the Duo Jet, which is the George Harrison one with the Dynasonic pickups in. So this is a nice, you know, this has got the Filtertrons, and the other one's got the Dynasonic. So, you know, and this one is Chet Atkins Orange as well, which is always nice. You can see it if you've been watching the some of my promo videos for the new album. You know, I've deliberately kind of done that in the videos that I've made for it, is really make the guitar ping, because you know, it's kind of music. The album is very much for, you know, people who love guitar. You know, it's 35 minutes of full-on twangy Gretsch. It's almost like an advertisement for Gretsch, you know, really. So, okay, I just thought I'd kind of share that with you. But I haven't really done any gigs with it, obviously, because there's no gigs to be had. But I basically had it 2 weeks and broke the headstock on it. And then when I got it fixed, I was kind of a little bit scared to use it because I kept donking it. But anyway, here we are, and it's out there now. It's going to be my companion on this kind of surf rock promotional journey with the new album. Hey Kiddo, please pre-order it, all that kind of stuff. Now let's get into some of these Q&As. So the first question, Harold Hartley, who's a great supporter of the channel. I appreciate that, Harold. I know minor pentatonic. I've always been intimidated by the major pentatonic. Can you give us an easy way to remember the major pentatonic? You know, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's super duper common that people, guitar players especially, seem to get on okay with the minor pentatonic, but then implementing the major pentatonic can be really tricky for them. Really, what you want to do is kind of approach it, you know, by just exhaustive kind of practice. But I mean, that's not what you really want to hear on one of these videos. So what I'm going to do is give you a couple of little tips. So say if you're playing on an A chord, you know, you're playing on an A blues. I've got a bit of a rockabilly sound there, but you know, so you're playing minor. And what you want to do is look for those major tones that in relation to the minor pentatonic. This is a good way of maybe taking a little bit of the kind of like the academic approach to it out of it. So, you know, when you're playing the minor pentatonic, you're doing this pattern, aren't you? So that's the flattened third, and this is the root. So you can always find the second degree, because it's a semitone or a half step below the flattened third and a full tone below the above the root. So that's one note that isn't in the minor pentatonic, but is in the major pentatonic. So, and you can kind of do the same thing on the next string. There's your flattened seventh, and there's your fifth, and in the same kind of relation, a half step below the flat seven and a full step above the fifth, you have the sixth, and that is a major tone as well. So you've got these two notes here which really give off that major, sweeter sound. So you could be practicing just playing these. That's minor, it has a meaner sound. You know, it has a meaner tonality. But then if you try and incorporate these two, it sweetens it up. So just practice getting mean, sweet, mean, sweet. Not a lesson goes by where I don't mention Sweet Little Angel by B.B. King. I don't think, when I'm teaching blues anyway, because it's a really good example of him just switching between that minor and the sweet major blues sound. So you can see just by taking that minor and then incorporating the ninth and the sixth in, you can get that sound in your ear. Now if you continue onto the third string, that's the flattened third and the fourth, and in between those two you have the major third. That's a real Clapton thing, isn't it? Especially in that Cream era. So using that major third in between the minor third and the fourth. Now you can use them all in combination. So if I do minor, and then major, minor, and I'll put the blue note in, which is this, and there's the root again. So you've got minor, that's the minor blues, and then you've got these additional 3 notes which give the major sound. Minor, so just in that small space, there's a huge amount of music in there. Okay, I don't want this, I could, you know, develop this for the next 3 hours, couldn't I? Just going through different octaves and different positions on the guitar. But you can see what we did is we took the minor pentatonic, you know, you can include the blues note as well. And then look for those tones in relation to the minor. So you just really, it's like the proximity of those major tones, the 9th, the 6th, and the major 3rd in relation. So hope that helps, Harold. You know, it's something to kind of tinker around with, and if you get really comfortable with it here, then you can start doing that in other positions on the guitar. Like say, you know, the D form here, looking for the major 3rd, and the major 3rd is here. Again, right between the 4th and the minor 3rd. And like Clapton does that on Badge, doesn't he? You know, he plays the major 3rd and then goes straight into a minor lick. So there's your major 3rd, and it's easy to find the 9th and the 6th because, you know, there they were there, so they're still there, you know, so you can see there's the 6th, there's the 9th, major 3rd, you know, so you're just adding in the major 3rd, the 9th and the 6th around that little shed that we all use. I call it a shed because it's like 2 walls and a little pointy roof, but it's the D form, isn't it? Okay, so, you know, even just between... you can hear that switching between major and minor within that. So hours and hours of practice just with that one little concept, if you like. Looking for the 6th, the 9, and the major 3rd. Okay, and the next one is from a student called Paul Rick, and he comes to me for lessons, and we have a great time working through kind of stuff like this. But he sent me a message and said, are there any pitfalls that guitar players fall into too easily when deciding to use pedals? Okay, yeah, so hey, I suppose the biggest hindrance of pedals is you spend so much time shopping for them when you should be doing something fun with the guitar, like playing it. You know I'm guilty of that sometimes. You know, you'd be on reverb for like 2 hours and geez, I could have written a song by now, or I could have done something. But I think you know, I suppose that in itself, you actually don't really need pedals. 99% of the sounds you can get really are out of the amp and the guitar. But you know, like I'm doing a bit of a rockabilly kind of thing, and without the slap back, that's actually quite a long slap back there, isn't it? You know, it's quite a long one for maybe slower kind of tunes and stuff. But without that slap back, it's not going to sound like rockabilly. So there are a few essential things that you need. Maybe when you're in a rock gig, you know, you maybe need a boost pedal to just cut your solos out a little bit. Or maybe you should just get a little bit better at working your volume on your guitar. But, you know, if you're playing rockabilly, you know, you need slap back. If you're playing in a police tribute band, I suppose you need some kind of chorus and delay as well. So there are kind of like essential things, but I don't think your pedal board needs to be able to do everything. I think you need to decide what you want to do and then just really kind of strip it down to that. My main thing is that when I look at my pedal board and I'm on a gig, if I see too many options, I don't like it at all. I only want a couple of options. Really, I like looking down and seeing a wah-wah pedal, and then maybe a boost if I need my solo to be bigger, because maybe the band is kind of rocking a little bit louder and I don't want to go to the amp and turn up and then be too loud for the next tune. Maybe just some kind of boost to kind of like kick my level up a notch. What can happen on a gig though is you leave it on and that becomes your new norm, and then you haven't got a boost for that again. So it's kind of, you have to make sure you turn it off to make sure you come back down again and you can use it again. But I don't like looking down myself personally and seeing too many options when it comes to, I don't use modulation on gigs. I don't really feel that you kind of need to. I don't use too many space, time-based things. Maybe a touch of reverb, or obviously slap back for the rockabilly kind of things. Maybe a little bit more reverb if I'm doing the surfy thing. But like the room does so much for you, and people forget that. And I often tell students the story of going to see bands, and especially kind of younger bands where they've got a lot of equipment, and you can't hear things very defined because they've got so many time-based effects on the guitars, which is, sounds great when you're at home, but when you're in a massive room, it just turns the guitar to mush. You lose that kind of clarity and definition. So I'd be really, really careful about using time-based stuff. If you can get away with not, I would say, try to use. If you say you're playing a blues gig with a Les Paul and a Marshall, if it doesn't have a reverb on it, that's probably a good thing. It might feel slightly uncomfortable at home, but when you're on the gig, it will probably sound great because the room will just add that kind of effect on for you, and everybody will be able to hear super clear what you're doing. And that's the reason why certain bands sound so cool, because it's just their guitar and an amp, and then the room. That is the effect, not the pedal in between. A lot of the time the pedals sound great at home, but not necessarily on the gig. So that again is probably what the main concern to think about is, what sounds great at home doesn't necessarily sound great on the gig. Or when you're playing with a band, that obviously adds different psychoacoustic things into a play. When someone's playing a ride cymbal in your ear, you're not going to get those same effects, I suppose satisfaction from hearing your effects as you would when you were sat at home just kind of noodling and that. But and one last thing to add on to that is that I actually don't enjoy sitting around playing with pedals, because if I'm kind of like playing with pedals, I'm tending to do this, diddle, twiddle, 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 twiddle. I'm not really playing my guitar. So, and if I can use the smallest amount of equipment on the floor as possible, I'd probably spend way, way more time playing the guitar, writing tunes, being creative. So anyway, that's my tuppence in on that. Not anti-pedals. I've got loads of pedals and I enjoy using them to get certain kind of sounds and stuff. But pretty much, whenever I get a pedal, I never really explore it to its full capacity. I kind of get it and I get a little buzz when I get it, and then I set it to one setting, and then that generally seems to be it. Even though it can do fireworks and millions of other things, it tends to be I tend to just use it for one thing. One pedal that I do recommend, and it is really kind of cool, is that Keeley DDR, which I use a lot because it has a tube screamer and it has a plexi kind of overdrive in it. You can just choose one of them, and then it has a delay or a reverb. And in just one pedal, I often just go to a gig with one amp and just sit that on top of the amp, and then I'll just kind of, I need more gain, I just go just turn the gain up. If I want a delay sound for something rockabilly or something modern, you know, then I can just flip it and go. But you get to know that pedal really, really well if it's just sitting on top of your amp, you know, especially if it's not. I wouldn't do that if it was my gig, you know, and I was singing out front. I'd probably have a pedal board. But if I'm on sessioning on somebody else's, or even playing weddings and things like that, you know, a lot of the time you just kind of like, you're playing guitar, you know, you're not singing and out front and stuff, you know, even though I do that sometimes. It's a lot of the time you're just sitting and playing it, or standing and playing guitar, and you can afford to just go, oh yeah, this one, you know, it's literally 2 seconds to go, and that means that you've got nothing on the floor. You just got a curly lead going into the amp. Anyway, so that we'll wrap it up there. So the Q&A number 2, I hope that kind of helped. It was a bit of fun, wasn't it, to explore that. If you've got any questions, please ask, and please pre-order the Hey Kiddo album if you love a little bit of rockabilly and kind of instrumental surf music. I'm really excited to get out and kind of play that and put it out there. It's been an album that I've wanted to do for like 25 years, you know, so it's really fun to kind of stick it out there. It's all original stuff, and there's a lot of fireworks on the guitar if you enjoy that kind of stuff, so please check it out. Okay, keep it burning. I'll speak to you soon.